Right. So yesterday, we actually looked at this type of factoring, but didn't really go heavily into it, okay? But I did give you questions like this that you guys were able to do, where I gave you two binomials to multiply, and you guys recognized you had to do 4 multiplications for them. So for example, 3d plus 4 times 4d plus 2, we got to take the 3d, multiply it by everything in the second set, go back and take the 4 and multiply it by everything in the second set, and then simple. So what's 3d times 4d? Remember, 12d squared. Remember, d times d, or x times x, is x squared. X plus x is 2x. And then we get plus 6d, plus 16d, plus 8. Perhaps you guys have noticed this pattern, but every time we do one of these, we can always simplify the 2 in the middle. Yep. I don't think I have any extra copies, so yeah.
Can you?
Yes, I will. Okay. So to get 12d squared, plus 22d plus 8. Okay. Notice a couple of things between the multiplication and the final answer. Notice that this term is always going to be the product of the first 2 terms. We're going to multiply those together, and we're always going to get the first term of the answer. When I multiply the last 2 terms, I'm always going to get the last term in the answer. That plus. How do I get the middle term? It's always going to be, and there's a reason I picked this. Now that'll work. The middle term will always be the outside term multiplied, the inside term multiplied, and added together. So notice we multiplied 3d plus 6, we get 6d. Inside we multiply 4 times 4a, or sorry, 4 times 4d, we get 16d. And when we add the 2 together, we get that. I know it looks a little crazy. So given that, do you think that you could go directly to the answer for the second one without doing this step? What's the first term going to be? It's going to be these 2, right? Which is what? 6k squared. What's the last term going to be? It's going to be those 2, negative 40. And what's the middle term going to be? It's going to be 10k minus 14k. 10k, sorry, minus 24k, which gives you minus cutting that. So notice we were able to get to the answer right away. You don't have to do it this way, but I wanted to show it to you because what's the process called when we start here and go back to figure out what we multiplied? What's that called? You should know this. What's the word we've been using this unit? Factoring. When you factor something, I'm going to put that on the test. And actually, it should define it. When you factor something, you're breaking it up into what times what gives you what I'm asked to factor. Okay? And there's a reason why I did this nice little rainbow color. Because what if we're asked to factor these? We can't use the sum product thing. Why? Because there's a number in front. If it was just x squared, then we could say, okay, it's going to be x and x. What two numbers add to this? What two numbers multiply to that? And you get your answer. This is a little bit more complicated. So what we got to do, first of all, it's always going to break up into two binomials. Always. Just like I said here. We can factor trinomials. Sorry. We can also factor trinomials like that into two binomials. So remember what I said when we did the multiplication, because now you think in reverse. These two have to multiply to get this. What's the only possible pair of expressions that multiply to get 2x squared? Each one's got to have an x. 2x and 1x, or just 2x and x. I know that this is right. Actually, I'm going to check mark on the bottom, so I'm going to put my rainbow up top. The two numbers here have to multiply to get 3. What two numbers multiply to get 3? 3 and 1. And don't forget your signs. So it's positive 3 and positive 1. That works. But I don't know if I'm completely correct, because if I multiply it through, do I get this? Well, let's see. How do we figure this out? This is where we go to the rainbow. What's 2x times 1? What's 3 times x? Combine those. Works. So we got it right. We factored it correctly. Let me show you something that's wrong. Let's say we did this. Instead of going 3 and 1, we did 1 times 3. That still works, right? But if we rainbow it, what's 2x times 3?
26.
What's 1 times x? And when I combine those, what's 6x and 1x? Which is not this. So that's why this doesn't work and this does. Okay? So this doesn't work. We found the right answer here. This is the right answer. And I just show you what doesn't work, because sometimes it won't work on your first try. Okay? Sometimes it will. But you'll find that as you do more of these, you'll figure them out quicker and quicker. So let's look at a few other examples. That's all I want to do. Okay. When I see this trinomial, I know it's going to look like this. But I can't just do x and x because there's a number in front of the x squared. So this is where I got to do the kind of guess and check thing, the rainbow thing. Okay. What two expressions multiply to get this? 2x and 2x, or 1x and 4x. Question is, which one should I try? One of them will work, the other one won't. Little bit of advice, always try the pair that are closer together. So 2 and 2 are closer together than 4 and 1. So let's try 2x and 2x. So I know that's going to work. Give me a pair that multiplies to -3. So +3, -1. So that works. Now I got to check it. How do you check it? Do your rainbow. What's 2x times -1? What's 3 times 2x? Combine those two. Got it. So you got it on the first shot. That's our answer. Let's try one more together before I let you go on one. So again, what's the first thing we're going to write? We're going to write 2 sets of parentheses. Now we got to figure out what goes here. Has to be 2x and x and 1x. That's the only possible combination. Two numbers that multiply to get 5. It could be 5 and 1, or it could be 1 and 5. Which one do you want to try? You want to try 5 and 1? I know that works. It's just this I got to check. 2x times 1. Inside 5 times x. Together make. Works. Got it. We're pretty good at the guessing thing. Okay. Try the next one. Work with somebody if you need to. Okay. What do we think it is?
I think for the first graph it's going to be b -1.
Okay.
And then for the second graph it's going to be 7b plus 1.
Okay. B times 7b, yes. -1 times +1, yes. B times 1 is b. -1 times 7b is -7b. B, combine these, gives me -6b. So it should be that. If you had 7b plus 1 and then b minus 1 after that, if you had these reversed, it's still right. It's fine. That'll happen. Okay, good. Yeah.
So, like, I did 7b minus 1. And
Yeah.
then b plus,
Okay, let's see why that doesn't work.
because it's +6 something.
Right, exactly. And that kind of helps you figure out what the correct answer would be, right? So like, let's say you put this as your first guess. Okay, I'm sure some of you probably did. So 7b times b is 7b squared, minus 1 times plus 1 is minus 1. But when I do the rainbow, I get 7b and minus b. Together make plus 6b, right? Which is not right. I need minus. So doesn't that tell me I don't have to change the numbers? I just have to change the signs. So that way it'll work out to plus instead of minus if I switch the signs. All right. Let's do this one together. First thing I do, what am I going to put for the first term?
5x and 1x.
5x and 1x, or 5x and x. Has to be. There's no other possible choice. So there's lots of choices for -3. But you could have -3 times 1, or +3 times -1, or you could put the 1 first and then the 3 after. What do you want to try? Okay. Let's try that. I know this works. For your rainbow, I get -15x. Inside, I get +1x, which together make -14x. But I need positive. So what would you do to correct it? Switch the signs. Keep everything else the same, but switch the signs. That's right. That doesn't work. See what you can do with all the remaining ones. I gave you quite a few of these, because with this, you get better the more you practice it. Are we here? Yeah. Now, this is where you got to look at the question and use a little strategy. Like it says plus 11, right? So you're probably thinking, oh, 11 and 1 or 1 and 11. But look at the middle. What's so special about the middle term? It's negative. So remember, not only does a positive and a positive multiply to get positive, so does a negative and a negative. Doesn't that mean that they both have to be negative? So it's either going to be negative 11 and 1. So I'm going to try that. So 2n times n is 2n squared. -11 times -1 is positive 11. When I do my rainbow, I get -2n and -11n. Right, so is this correct? No, this is not right. I got a completely different number than what I should have, right? So that doesn't tell me to switch the signs, switch the numbers. So if you get here and it doesn't work, just switch the numbers and you're pretty much guaranteed it's going to work this time. -22n, -1n, make -23n. So that's my answer. So you see, once you start sort of playing around with it a little bit, you're usually going to now get them on the first or the second. Because if you make a mistake on your first try, you're probably going to figure out what that mistake is and correct it correctly on the second try. So right away, it's going to be those. There's two possible choices for two expressions that multiply and get this, right? Which ones are you going to try first? 2h and 2h. because more than likely that's going to be the one. Everything's plus, so these got to be plus. 3 and 3 seems to be kind of obvious. So 6h on the outside, 6h after multiplying on the inside, which together make 12h. So 2h plus 3 and 2h plus 3. Just out of, this is right. But how would you write this simplified? What's so special about these two binomials? They're the same. Yeah. In this case, you could just do write one of them and then just put squared. Last one. Well, you should have had that. It's gotta be 3k and k, no other choice. But now for -10, lots of things that multiply to get -10. So it could be 5 and 2, 2 and 5, the plus and minus is different. It could be 10 and 1 or 1 and 10, but try the ones closer together. So play around with 5 and 2. So I'm gonna just -5 and +2. If I do that, it gives me 6k multiplied on the outside, minus 5k multiplied on the inside, which is not going to combine me to get this. It gets me a completely different number, doesn't it? So what can I do to correct? Switch the numbers. So 3k minus 2 k plus 5, but I see that being a mistake too. Because when I do this, I get 15k minus 2k, which together make 13k. Or sorry, 13k. The k, don't switch the k's. Switch signs. And that's going to work. So it's 3k plus 2. That's going to work. No, you're right. You could have switched the 3k and k. But I always do the bigger one first. That's what I do. But if you do it that way, that's fine. Okay? So these are kind of like, they're kind of challenging to get at times, but it's one of those things that when you get, like, you feel really happy, you know, like, because you're like, wow, this is complicated. I got it. Okay? That's good.